We really ain't playing. We regroup up in the Slack chat where the coaches debrief. We be piecing these puzzles, occupy the chunk of the pie. Ain't no lie when we hit the block, helmet's casket is top. You be seeing helmet after helmet, helmet after helmet. First place, second place, fifth place, 8th place, 12th place, 15, 16, 20. So many helmets, you got blurred vision, we got...
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another edition of the DFS Army Killshot MMA Breakdown Podcast. We are open to the public again for UFC 263, Adesanya versus Vettori. I've got the dream team with me, literal sports betting MMA goats, Bigmarley and Dan Levy. What's up, fellas? What do you think?
I'm pumped for this card, man. I'm looking forward to this one. It takes a lot, I think, to get me excited for cards these days now that I spend most of my week just preparing for them. But this is one I'm really excited for. I think having the fans there just makes everything a little bit better as well. But we got two great title fights that I can't wait for.
Dan, is this a good by comparison to other pay-per-views? Are you putting this on the top half of, excited for them levels, or medium, bottom? Where do you put this one?
Look, if there's an opportunity to make money, I'm excited no matter what. But this specific card, two title fights, like Marley said, and then you got my two favorite prospects in the top 15 towards the kind of end in hashtag Bilal and Jamal. So I like this card a lot.
There we go. It is an exciting card, and one of the things I want to share is taking a look at, let's see here if I can get my screen share going, but taking a look at the various sites, DraftKings, FanDuel. It's always interesting to see how they are treating the card. So if we take a look at DraftKings, they did step up their game a little bit. Marley, you'll be excited here. $200K to first. DraftKings did a little sneaky, though. Instead of increasing the size of the tournament here, it's the same standard kind of $35K entrance. They raised the price to $25 an entry. So a little bit more spendy if you want to get in here, but a pretty exciting $200K prize to first in the big DraftKings contest. FanDuel, as usual, doesn't give a shit. Same contest as always, $888, $15K to first. Don't know what to say about that. And finally, Super Draft, the only other fantasy site for MMA, did step it up a little bit, 500 entries. And this is a tournament, guys, that I really recommend if you want to win a tournament, right? If you want to win a tournament, and this is some simple math, and you guys are sports gamblers, so you understand probabilities better than anybody, right? Now, Dan, if I'm in a contest with 35,200 entrants, it's hard to win it, man. There's a lot of 1 in 35,200. That's not such great odds to come in first place. But here, in this style of contest, it's 467 entries. Winnable, more winnable. So if you're one of those people that really love to complain about fantasy and daily fantasy, and it's only for people who can afford millions of entries and all this shit, you're wrong. You're just playing the wrong contest. Get in something like this here. Go sign up at Super Draft. Of course, you see my bankroll increase because it's so easy to win here. No sharks. And you can sign up with promo code DFS Army here, and they match your deposit. So it's free money on a great site to play on. I highly recommend it. All right, so let's get into this card, fellas. As usual, the format, we are going to start at the bottom, early prelims, and make our way up to the main event, or the three main events. By the way, how the hell is Edwards versus Diaz 5 rounds? Like, how does that happen? I don't even, they're just like, hey, let's do it for 5. And they're like, all right.
Diaz calls shots.
Yeah, I didn't even know that was 5 rounds. Really?
Yeah.
That makes it interesting. Okay. That makes me more excited about it.
Yeah, there we go. And it's just like, why? All right, well, we're going to do it. I guess Diaz feels like anything he's fighting in should be a main event, even if it's not. That's an ego thing.
Yeah, homie thinks that he's getting a title shot even with a loss. I mean, it's impressive.
Well, how many followers does he have? Let me
I don't know.
A lot.
This guy hasn't.
People who don't watch fights know who Diaz is, at least. So
I mean, I love the
Diaz. Hold on. Diaz has 4.8 million Instagram followers. So I think we figured out the reason why.
There it is, man. You know, he's got 4.8 million followers. Like he's basically
he's got 5 million followers essentially. After this weekend, it'll be 5 million.
He could probably fight Floyd Mayweather and get $100 million.
Yeah,
like Jake Paul style. Why not? All right, let's get into it. First fight of the card, and we were just talking about this before the podcast started, right? We've got a late replacement situation here, and last week we had that, but it was really different. Last week it was Figueiredo taking on a much smaller, inexperienced fighter, and it was a free square situation. We talked about it. We played the Murder, She Wrote song. Somebody was murdered in the fight. It went that way, but here we've got a different fight. So the Holy Roller, Matt Frevola, he's taking on Terrence McKinney here as a last-minute replacement. Now, the last time we saw McKinney, he was taking an ass whooping by Sean Woodson, who has not looked good in the UFC. Or I'm not going to say he looked bad, but he's looked like a good striker, but hasn't been great in the UFC. But he took an ass whooping from him on the Contender Series, the Flying Knee. We all saw it. He's had a couple of wins since then. He's taken on Frevola here. The fight, wow, this is a really good bet here. Fight doesn't go to decision, minus 155. Dan, I'll go to you for the breakdown on this fight. Give me a little idea of how these two guys operate.
Well, firstly, Terrence didn't get his ass whooped on Contender Series. He got caught because he was winning the entire fight against Sean Woodson, and basically in a little bit into the second round, Woodson caught him with a flying knee. But prior to that, it was like takedown city for Terrence McKinney. And then he goes to the regional scene, and he's been deading dudes. He's not just on a win streak, he's on a kill streak. So you definitely, like, you got to watch his last two fights. Like, it was a brutal head kick knockout and a brutal ground and pound knockout. So he's made a lot of noise. So now he got his call. And I mean, look, he's got a tough fight with Matt Frevola. Matt Frevola is never an easy out. He's a guy that's made a lot of improvements, and he's a dog. You got to get him out of there to win against him. And I see the first 7 minutes being kind of rough, but historically speaking, when you take Terrence out the first round, that's when maybe, like, you know, if it's 1-1 going into the third round, I think Frevola might be able to get that last takedown and edge it out. But man, it could be a close fight, and it could go either way. But I'll take Frevola with the experience.
There we go. How about you, Bigmarley?
Yeah, this is one of my favorite GPP fights on the card because I don't think we'll need the judges for it. I think Frevola is better everywhere. I think he is the better striker, the better wrestler, the better cardio, and we're getting him with his old price tag or his old salary. Sorry, his old betting line, but his salary still stays the same, which makes him almost a lock for me in cash games. I think he's going to be the one that's looking for takedowns early in this fight and just kind of take the energy away from McKinney early when he's going to be the freshest and best. That would be the smartest thing for him to do anyways, but it wouldn't shock me at all to see McKinley crack him on the feet, knock him out with a high kick, something like that. If Paulo Reyes can do it, I think this McKinley guy can as well. But I'm going to go with Frevola. I'll be really heavy on him because I think he does look to get this fight to the ground early and often, and I just see him getting a submission along the way. After he tires McKinley out, it's just going to be over in the second or third round. That's how I see it.
Yeah. So just from my point of view on this one, this is not a free square. Hell no. Because number one, he's not priced that differently. You know, for his odds and at 8,900, for example, where his salary is, it's pretty appropriate. Maybe it's a little smidge of line odds value. So now we go to the secondary component here, which is, you know, is he going to definitely win this? You know, last week, again, Figueiredo was not losing that fight. This week, we've got an opponent in Terrence McKinney, as you said, who has been absolutely destroying opponents in his last few fights, and not garbage guys, Dan. These guys are reasonably decent LFA record fighters, right? It's not it's not the 16-30 guy. You know, all right, you beat him, good for you. He's looked really, really good in his last few fights. And Frevola, nothing special throughout his UFC career. He's fine, solid guy. So the big one was what you talked about, got knocked out by Paulo Reyes. So he can be knocked out. I get it. Reyes might have been on the special substance. It doesn't matter. He can be knocked out. So the more important thing for me is looking at not Frevola, but McKinney's record, there are not fights that go to decision ever. I mean, what the heck is going on? Round one, round three, finish. So this guy has fought 11 times. Every single time, it's been an inside the distance finish. Every time. So that tells me expect lots of scoring here, plenty of fantasy points for the winner, whichever way it goes. The first thing that stands out to me on the betting line is, why the hell is this fight goes to decision, doesn't go to decision, minus 155. Probably should be a little bit higher than that considering McKinney's history. Of course, Fola is the rightful favorite here, but I like the underdog if I was betting it, and I definitely want tons of exposure to this fight across the board. This is one of my favorite fights to target. Not so much for Fola, but because McKinney seems to not go very deep into fights. He's a finisher be finish guy. At least he's been that way. So let's see if that continues. Next up, we've got in the women's division, Penny Kianzad taking on Alexis Davis. Penny's a slight minus 190 favorite, 2-1 favorite. Come back on Davis plus 165. And this is a likely to go to decision type of fight, minus 325. Fight goes to decision. So Bigmarley, I have some, I got a little bit of research going from the outside that I'll share here, but what do you have to say about these two fighters?
Not one that I really love. I mean, really, for any purposes, not excited to watch it. Don't love it for Draftkings. But in my opinion, it's more so dog or pass, just all around. I think it's a little bit closer than the line indicates, with Davis having her edge on the mat. She's always looking to push forward and just get dirty on the feet, but Kianzad is going to be the better striker, throwing higher output. She's the bigger girl as well, so maybe she can even stuff takedowns. But I think if Davis can get takedowns, she can maybe keep control time long enough to win rounds. And I think it's just going to be a lot easier for her to pay off her price tag, especially if she's going to win through a grappling-based style. So I kind of like Davis in all formats. And Kianzad, she's never even scored 80 points on DraftKings. I think this is probably her best matchup to maybe get there with her 8.8K salary. But I just don't want to pay that much for somebody who's never scored 80 points before and who could be trying to stuff takedowns, get up off her back for periods of time where she's not going to be scoring. So I won't be targeting Kianzad at all with any of my hand builds, I don't think. But at the same time, I don't think she'll have any ownership at all. So I don't hate her for 150 lineups if I'm getting a small amount of exposure. But Davis will probably be someone that I look to match the field just so I'm not burned if she does win this with a grappling-based decision. And I think if she does win, she probably scores more than that $7,400 price tag. So I'm going to take Davis in like a split decision type fight that could go either way. But if she struggles with takedowns, I think Kianzad's going to pick her apart on the feet.
Yeah, Dan, that last fight with Davis against Sabina, she kind of executed the game plan that you'd kind of want to see her use here if she's going to get this underdog win.
Yeah, no questions asked. And I mean, when you talk about Alexis Davis, you're talking about someone that finished Amanda Nunes. Like, I don't know if y'all know that, but
I did not know that.
They got into a fist fight one time, and Alexis Davis won via TKO. So she'll always have my respect, And listen, man, I think that it's simply a case of, can she get Penny Kianzad down or not? Because if she doesn't, she kind of marks up easily. And I like the fact that Penny Kianzad has averaged at least 100 significant strikes per fight her last 3 fights on this win streak she's on. So I do think that the standing edge definitely goes to Kianzad. All comes down to if she can stuff. I think she does have better takedown defense than Mazo. I think she's further along in her career. I think she's flat out in her prime. So I'll actually go with the favorite Penny Kianzad to get this done. But obviously it's a contingent on her keeping it standing.
And another thing to like with Kianzad is that Davis was really getting those takedowns on Mazo just by catching kicks and taking her down. I don't think she's going to have that same success with Kianzad. I think she'll have to get real takedowns, actually work for them, and it'll be just a lot harder than it was against Mazo. I just think that if she's successful at all, she could probably keep top control long enough.
Yeah, I think just overall for fantasy purposes, Penny is an easy fade at 8,800. High dollar amount on DraftKings, a high multiplier on the other sites. And with so many fighters looking way more sexy and potentially able to put up much bigger numbers right in that zone or above, this is an easy fade for me. Her best score, 79. That not going to do it. Not for 8,800. So for fantasy purposes, Davis is the only one I'm interested in. I did get some intel from Sun Tzu, the ladies MMA whisperer himself. He is very excited about Alexis Davis in this spot. And so that's enough for me, man. Sun Tzu tell me he likes Alexis. That's enough for me to be at least somewhat interested in terms of the dog. Do I think she's going to win? I don't know, but at plus 170, 7,400, her wins have scored actually fairly well on DraftKings. So I'll have some interest in her as a underdog play, although not one of my favorites on the card by any stretch. So I'll take Davis in this one, but more so because I'm just fading Penny for fantasy purposes. Even if she wins, it's not something where I think she'll be in any kind of winning lineups. So easy fade. All right. Next up, we've got Faraz Ziam taking on Luigi Vendramini. This is a fun fight. Really close odds. Faraz right now coming in at minus 135. Vendramini plus 115. Fight doesn't go to decision, minus 140. That's our baseline. Now, Bigmarley, tell me about these two fighters. What do they do well? What do they do poorly? And how do they match up?
Both are super young, so I expect just every time out them to improve a little bit. Faraz is the better kickboxer, better point striker, I would say. Maybe the better gas tank. I think the longer this goes, the more it'll shift into his favor. But Luigi's more of a killer. He's just going to go out there early, look for some violent combos to try and knock Faraz's head off, or look for takedowns. And I'd say he's better on the mat, and that's been Faraz's big weakness so far. He's been taken down 8 times in his 2 UFC fights, and I think Luigi can definitely have success there and maybe even choke him out. So I'm more so on the Luigi side because he's the guy with the ceiling. I think he has 100-plus point upside for DraftKings, whereas I don't know that that's the same thing with ZM. If he gets a finish, I think it's more likely to be a later finish, and maybe that's not enough for it to be done. And if he gets a decision win, I would expect it to just be striking points only, and that I wouldn't expect him to get there. But he is right there in the mid-range, so we don't have to have 100-plus points from him. So I won't be Xing ZM out of my lineups, but I do want to be overweight to the Luigi side because if he gets his 100-plus points, we're going to need him. So that's what I'm going to do is I'm just going to lean with the upside. Instead of feeling confident about Luigi at all, I'm just going to target the upside only, and he'll be the guy that I look to get exposure to, and I might come close to fading ZM.
There we go. Madge, he worked for us with his wrestling. Does Luigi have that in him to kind of execute that style of game plan here?
I'm not sure. I mean, I know he's a black belt, but I'm not sure under who. We just haven't really seen too much of both these guys, and they're both super young, so you can expect improvements every single time out. I guess I've just been more impressed with Luigi because you make your UFC day. You come from the regional scene he came from, and then all of a sudden you're fighting Zaleski. And then you take Zaleski's back and like give everybody that bet Zaleski a scare. He got my attention just with that. And then he bounces back and he takes out a guy that went the distance with Darren Till in the first round. So I'm curious to see what he does next. With Ziam, a lot of people thought his last fight against Malarkey was controversial. I mean, I disagree. The famous Joe Silva quote is, "You can't win a fight by putting your head between a man's legs." And I mean, like, you look at the strike counts, and he more than doubled him up on strikes. And every time that a takedown was landed against him, he popped back up. So I think Ziam, he might not be as exciting as Vendramini, but I think he's a tough out. He's long. He's tough to deal with. He's improving every fight. So it could be a close fight. I'm going to lean with Vendramini. He's the underdog in what I consider to be a 50-50 fight. So I'll take Vendramini.
Yeah, very close fight. Even the fight goes to decision odds or doesn't go, minus 140. So kind of 50-50. I'm just looking at the inside the distance props. Very similar for both guys. I mean, the main thing for me is I've seen Luigi actually destroy somebody in the UFC in his career. I haven't seen that from Faraz. He's got a win, but I haven't seen that destruction like I saw from Luigi. Luigi's, you're 100% what you said is correct. Like, his his previous experience is very sketchy, but he's looked good now in 2 UFC fights, even one that he lost. So I'm going to go lean with Luigi as well here as the better play overall. All right, next up we've got Jake Collier taking on Carlos Felipe, and battle of the fatties is coming up. Felipe minus 170, Collier plus 150. Fight goes to decision minus 155. So Bigmarley, man, when a guy Collier, he looked so bad when he did the debut, and then he comes out and he gets to fight, the worst fighter maybe ever in Gian Vellante. He gets the win. Fine. How much stock are we putting in that win? Is he now like, hey, we're all cool with the fact that we saw this guy at 185 and now he weighs 2? Like, are we fine with that now? We're okay with that?
I mean, the guy didn't have his dip on Fight Island, so that's obviously why he got crushed by Aspinall so fast. So I think we just write that one off. But no, I mean, it's definitely what I don't know what to really do with this guy. I would rather write off the Aspinall fight rather than the Vellante fight. But at the same time, Vellante's just no good. So you kind of got to expect most people to beat Vellante at this point.
Everybody beats Vellante. I'm pretty confident that if I did a little working out.
Yeah, I mean, Felipe's probably going to beat Vellante too. So this is more like in the middle of those two fights. So what are we going to see with that one? I'm going to guess that he's going to be tough enough to survive Felipe's shots. I don't think Felipe is too powerful of a striker. He's just a good boxer. He's the better boxer of the two. He's good output as well for a heavyweight. But I just think Collier he has more tools in his striking toolbox. I think if he wanted to look for a takedown, he could have some success on top. But I expect a striking match in this fight and just a back and forth striking match where both guys have their moments. I think Collier's probably going to be the guy with a little bit higher output, throwing some leg kicks, throwing some high kicks, just mixing it all around, whereas Felipe, we're just going to be getting boxing from him. So I think this is closer to a 50-50 fight, and I would rather take Collier. He is also he's going to have an easier time paying off his price tag at 7,500. In his last fight, he only scored 80 points, which I thought it was going to be a lot more because he was really active in that fight. But still, 80 points, if he gets that here, that's fine at 7,500. Whereas Felipe at 8,700, I just don't see him getting that done. He's never even scored 70 points in a Draftkings win. So he's mostly going to be a fade for me, and he probably needs a knockout to get it done. But at the same time, if you look back at that Aspinall knockout, I mean, are we going to get that same guy? Who knows? So you can't really fade him because they are heavyweights. Maybe he lands a big bomb, but he's definitely not going to be somebody I'm looking to target at 8.7K, and it's going to be Collier or pass for me. So give me the dog to get it done.
All right, Dan, let me throw you a hypothetical, right? You're a pretty girl. All right, so it's a hypothetical. Sorry. You marry this guy, right? He's ripped. You go into the gym together. You're like, I like working out too. You're all that, right? Now you come home one day and all of a sudden it's this guy. Who's that? What happened to the prototype? Who is this? What are you doing here? Like, is that, can you get divorced over that?
I mean, listen, you're right. And it's overreaction. I don't really think that he's that live of an underdog here. And I understand the angle of the volume and this and that, but it's like, if you're in the UFC and you haven't figured out how to beat Gian Vellante yet, like I expect most guys to go out there and land over 100 significant strikes or knock out Vellante, right? So, like we thought Mikhail Oleksiejczuk was a prospect because of how he looked versus Vellante. Maurice Green is out here beating Vellante. So, to me, it's still the same fat Jay Collier, and I think that Felipe is the better heavyweight with the cleaner hands, and I'm going to take Felipe here to knock him out.
I'm definitely taking Felipe also. I mean, it's not even close for me. I get the underdog thing, but like I am not going to be fooled by somebody beating Gian Vellante. He's still, grounds for divorce situation. Dude, only 3 years passed, bro. Like, what the fuck happened to you? How is it possible that happened? I still don't. And you're an athlete. Like, if I even worked out like half an hour a day, I'd be like, you know what I'm saying? I'd be so ripped right now. This guy, if you want to be a UFC athlete, like you need to be training a lot. Like I don't know. I don't even understand what the hell's going on with this guy. I am on
Felipe's
Felipe.
not an athlete either, though, guys. I
No.
mean, if he would get flatlined by Aspinall as well, like any kind of overreaction would be the same thing with Felipe.
No,
He's going to lose this fight, actually. I'm more confident now.
I disagree with Felipe. At age 14 was like 350 pounds. This was
exactly
like,
no athleticism at all.
No, but he was for him to look like he does today means that guy works hard at like being in shape. Like this dude was like a 320-pound 14-year-old kid, right? He was an obese child that has now morphed into this athlete. Like, Collier was like 130 pounds in high school. You know what I'm saying? He was skinny. He was ripped, and he just wants to eat like a lot.
I'm betting Collier. You talked me into it.
He's like eating chicken, fried mozzarella. He's ordering like a side of onion rings. You're like, yeah, man, yeah. I mean, the fries and the onion rings, bro. Not one. Do you want fries or the onion? Both. Like, he's having a steak. It's a chicken fried steak. You know what I'm saying? Like, let me turn it up a notch. All right, it's not enough. Let me get some fries with that. No. This guy, he's eating fucking salad, bro. And he's eating chicken. He's eating grilled chicken on a salad to get to look like what he does. It's a whole different world. All right, let's move on. You like that analysis? I don't have a song for that one, so I'm just fucking talking about fried chicken. I don't know. All right. Chase Hooper taking on Steven Peterson. Man, I don't know what this is another fight. Like, what do you do with this? I don't fucking know. I'm glad you guys have to break it down and I just get to listen here. Hooper plus 100, Peterson minus 120. Fight goes to decision plus 105. So fight doesn't go decision minus 135. Interesting line there. So I'll go to you on this one to start, Big Marley. You know, Hooper, man, he bailed himself out on that last fight. Didn't look good. And we have these issues with these guys who are only good at one thing. We saw it last week with that dude, the wrestler for 9K. I already erased him from my memory because I hate him now. But we saw that guy. He can't strike, can't do anything else. And when you have that and you're in the Ultimate Fighting Championship, sometimes things don't go well. You need a well-rounded set of skills. Chase Hooper does not have a well-rounded set of skills. Got the win against Peter Barrett. Fine, was getting his ass kicked the whole time. Now he's got Peterson. What do you make of this one?
It's the toughest one on the card for DraftKings because both of them have 100+ upside. It's just Hooper has to get it to the mat for there to be any upside at all. He can't strike, he can't wrestle, but if he can get lucky and have Peterson be dumb enough to go for a takedown, which wouldn't shock me at all, or, you know, jump on an ankle, something like that. I think he is live for a submission here. And if it's in round one, I mean, we're going to need him. So I can't X out Hooper, but he sucks. So I don't really want to roster him at the same time. And Peterson, he's not that great, but he's definitely the better striker here. Definitely more likely to get a knockout. Hooper takes a ton of punishment. Wouldn't shock me at all to see a knockout in any round from Peterson. And if it's in round one, we're going to need him. But at the same time, if this goes to a decision, I would expect it to be Peterson just fighting off takedowns and piecing Hooper up for 3 rounds. And I don't know that he gets there with that type of score, especially if he's cautious of takedowns and not fighting with any high output at all. So he is going to be my preferred play of the two. But I think this could be a fight that ends up on the 200K lineup. And that's what worries me because I just don't want to invest too much in either of these guys. So I'm not looking to make it a point to get them in the lineups. But with MME, I probably want to be overweight to both of them just for that chance of a first-round finish. But give me Peterson because I don't think I'll ever pick Hooper against anybody.
Yeah, man, Dan, I'm trying to understand how a guy whose only path to victory involves grappling, he's at a 7% takedown accuracy. The guy can't get is he training? Did he go to a real camp? Does he have somebody sharp teaching him the game right now? Like, do you know, is he at ATT? Did this guy go and find what's that dude who's fixing everybody? Now I can't remember his name, but Does he have anybody teaching him how to wrestle?
I don't know, but I know he did this camp with Wonder Boy, so maybe Wonder Boy's people are helping him out. But I mean, I think it's just the case where he got signed super young. He went out there and he submitted everyone he fought. So it was like one of those things where he moved up really fast. It just sucks because he takes so much damage that, how long can he sustain that? So hopefully he makes improvements. I mean, the good news for him is Steven Peterson ain't exactly a defensive wizard himself. Steven Peterson's a walking punching bag. So, but, to Steven Peterson's credit, he's had close to 30 fights. I don't think he's ever been submitted once. So I'm going to have to go with Steven Peterson, but there's just the thought of chalk on Steven Peterson is just one of those thoughts that Chase Hooper's probably going to get a comeback submission here. So the pick is Peterson just because I've seen more so far from him, but don't write off, a 21-year-old kid's ability to make improvements.
Yeah, I really would have preferred if I heard that, he's training somewhere, he's Team Elevation now for this camp, or that he made some moves other than going to hang out with Wonder Boy at his gym where there's kids in there. Wonder Boy, he's like the best guy ever. He's in there teaching.
Well, think about this. Think about this, though. I mean, Chase Hooper has 0 striking. Wonder Boy is one of the best strikers in UFC history. So maybe Wonder Boy can give him a couple pointers on how to improve that stand-up.
This kid needs more than a few pointers. I don't think the striking is he needs to learn how to get the fight to the ground. That's what he needs. But the problem here is, with Peterson, he has skills on the ground. He's got takedowns of his own. He's got a 75% takedown defense. It's not great, but it's okay. It's certainly good enough to beat out Mr. 7% takedown accuracy. So, yeah, I got to pick. I feel like I've been fooled. There's a hole in my personal game that I'm accepting now. When I see these really great guys at one thing that look really, really good against opponents that can't defend that one thing, then, all of a sudden you come in and somebody can counter wrestle you and you can't take them down and you get destroyed. Hooper didn't have that issue until he gets to UFC. We see it with time and time again with these guys. JP Bays, perfect example, looked great with his wrestling when he was going up against guys who have no wrestling. The minute somebody can counter it, he's lost. He doesn't know what the hell to do with himself. These types of guys fool me constantly. Hooper is on that list. I don't like it. I'm picking Peterson here, but I agree with both of you guys. No confidence. Hooper can sneak in a sub at any point. Peterson is a guy who finds a way to lose. So with all those things said, I don't think you can unfriend either of these guys when you make your lineup. All right, guys, before we move on, I just want to mention, as we are doing a special open to the public version of this podcast, if you want our cheat sheets, if you want our further breakdowns, get in the chat with myself, Bigmarley, and Dan. Get to dfsarmy.com, sign up as a VIP, sign up for the MMA only subscription if you want. That's cool. If you want to do MMA, we break it down every week. You got the Domination Station Optimizer, ownership projections, fighter projections, everything you need to take down tournaments. There's a reason you see DFS Army avatars winning these tournaments week after. It's not an accident, Dan. That shit is not an accident, bro. There's a reason. Our tools are better than ones that are out there. Our analysts are the best in the game, and that's why it all comes together. We understand we're not going to pick every fight correct. That's just not how it works, but fantasy doesn't work that way either. So you want the tools, you want our breakdowns, our cheat sheets, all of that stuff. Get to DFS Army, sign up as a VIP, sign up for an MMA membership. You can use my code, Geek. That's going to take 10% off either of those memberships. You just want MMA? Cool, come on in. We've got all that. You can talk to Dan, Marley, myself, the rest of our MMA staff, or break down every sport with VIP. Covers every single sport in the DFS landscape. We even got esports, Dan. We break down kids playing video games. Finger speed, thumb speed. Those are important things. You got to know it. We watch it. We break down. We time it. This kid, good reaction time. NASCAR, whatever you want. NFL's around the block. So we got you covered. Get signed up for dfsarmy.com as a VIP today. All right. Got to pay the sponsors, bro. Or got to take care of the sponsors.
Always.
Yeah,
Thank you, sponsors.
You know it, man. Got to take care of them. They take care of us. All right. Moving on. Here we go. Moving on. Movsar Evloev taking on Hakeem Dawodu. Here we go. Movsar, minus 230 favorite. Come back on Dawodu, plus 190. Fight goes to decision, a hefty minus 240. Now, Dan, it's interesting to see Movsar as an underdog here. I'm sorry. Dawodu is such a big underdog here. Interesting. And it looks like, you know, a little bit of money late has come in on Dawodu, and it's kind of hanging out here at this plus 190 rate. So how do you see this fight going down?
I don't know. It's tough, man, because it's like you said, seeing Dawodu as an underdog, that's, you know, to that extent, you know, plus 2 something, right?
And a little surprising.
And I cashed on Dawodu against Zubair Tukhugov, but I think the reason why is because this guy he's fighting, Evloev, is no slouch at all. And Evloev, we've called him Little Khabib on Half the Battle in the past, and he's one of these guys that he is relentless with his takedowns. But in addition to that, his striking's been improving a lot. He pushes a serious pace, but more importantly, he's got the heart of a champion, man. Like that fight against Grundy, he got caught in a deep Darce choke, and a lot of people, like, we wouldn't have held it against him if he would have tapped out or went to sleep. And he found the littlest of openings. He pushed off the hips. He gets back up to his feet, and then he takes over the fight. So this is a guy I got my eye on. So obviously, I understand people taking the shot on Hakeem when you see a line like that. He's I mean, his striking is some of the best in the featherweight division. He's a very physical guy. He's been improving his takedown defense, his get up game. Everything's been getting better. I just struggle picking against Evloev right now. The way this guy's looking, I see top 10 potential. But don't get me wrong, I respect Hakeem a lot. Like I said, cashed him in his last fight, and he might be a live dog here, but I'll go with Evloev.
Yeah, I think we got to make note. Hakeem, and he hasn't really fought like the greatest wrestlers throughout his career, but I mean, he is showing 85% takedown defense as well. So again, I'm not seeing anybody in this past that is a wrestler. And it's interesting. It's almost been the opposite for Evloev. Everybody he's fought has been a pretty good wrestler. And so I'm not sure we've seen the best version of the most dominant version of Evloev either, because he's been sort of going up against guys who negate his primary skill set a little bit and doing well against them. So I don't know. Bigmarley, what do you say here?
Yeah, I like Evloev here. I think on the feet it's close, but Dawodu has to have a striking match to win this fight. And I think the only way he really scores high is with a knockout. Maybe he could just keep Evloev on the feet for 15 minutes and win a striking decision and get close to 10x, but I think even 70 would be a tough task, to be honest. And I do think he'll just be spending too much time trying to fight off takedowns or spending too much time on his back. The biggest edge in this fight is Evloev's wrestling, and that's what I'm going to lean on here. I just think he can chain wrestle long enough to win rounds, and I like his striking as well. I think he could have success on the feet, and maybe he does start this off with a striking match, and he has to get cracked a couple times to realize that wrestling's the better thing to do. But that's what I'm going to rely on. I would rather have that in my DraftKings lineup as well. I think he has a 100+ upside even in a decision win. So Evloev will be one of the favorites I'm targeting fairly heavily this week.
I mean, there you go. I agree. I don't think the upside for Dawodu in terms of his scoring is going to be very good. You also have to, as a striker, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but you know, when you see a striker in there against an aggressive grappler, part of what makes them good at takedown defense, part of what gets the 85 is they're not out there just being wild, throwing, 150 strikes in these. They're prepared at all times. They're keeping their balance. You can't just throw strikes indiscriminately when your opponent can take you down at any moment. So you have to fight a little bit more reserved. What ends up happening is you don't get the output in terms of striking and even the power in those strikes that you might if you weren't worried about being taken down every second. So I think that negatively affects the score. If Dawodu doesn't get a fast finish here, even as an underdog, it's going to be very difficult for him to be worth rostering. And Evloev, it's going to come down to, can he get takedowns and get those dominant wrestling points? I'm not as convinced that he's going to score very well. I like him. I like him to win the fight. I always favor the wrestler, especially a wrestler who's well-rounded like this kid appears to be. But I'm a little nervous about what he's going to score in a win compared to some of these 5-round fights that are floating around the same salary and odds levels. So for me, I'm picking Evloev to get this win, but I don't really love this fight this week specifically. For fantasy scoring purposes. All right. Next up, Jojo Calderwood taking on Lauren Murphy. Calderwood is, went in bad order, but that's all right. Calderwood's coming in at -140. The comeback on Lauren Murphy is +120. Very close fight. Fight goes to decision, a massive -335. So, Bigmarley, I'll start with you on this one. Any interest in this fight at all? Do you have a lean?
Yeah, I kind of like this fight a lot for DraftKings because of their price tags. $8,200 for Calderwood, $8K for Murphy. I think this is just going to be a high-paced striking match for the most part, where either one of them could land takedowns. They could land multiple takedowns. And I actually think the takedowns could be what win the fight for either one of them as well. If somebody can get 3 takedowns in this fight, maybe they have a chance of winning. But Calder was just the higher output fighter. And if this is going to be a high-paced fight, she's going to be the one striking at the higher pace. When she wins, she scores well. Not necessarily the same with Murphy, but I do think if Murphy is able to win, she's probably the one landing those 3 takedowns. So Calderwood's going to be my preferred play, but I do think her high output will also make Murphy have to strike at a higher output as well. And I do think she will score over 80 points if she's able to get the win here. So I still want to be around like field weight on Murphy, but I want to be overweight on Calderwood, and I kind of like her in cash games as well. I just think she's going to, land over 100 strikes here and put up close to 100 points, maybe in the 90s somewhere, and at 8,200, I want that in my lineup. So I'm down with the Calderwood. I'm just worried about judges, man. Like, she could do everything that she's supposed to do here, but if Murphy does get 1 takedown each round, maybe they think that wins it for her, and that just screws everything up. So anytime you have to rely on the judges, which we probably will here with that, what'd you say, -345 fight goes to this decision line, that always worries me a little bit. So I won't be like all in or anything, but because of that mid-range salaries, I do like this fight quite a bit. But give me Calderwood.
Dan, ever since Lauren Murphy told Eddie Alvarez that, she didn't like his training style, he works her out too hard, and back home I train differently, and that soured me on her, man. And I got to say, she has a bunch of wins since then. That hasn't helped my record, my sourness on her, because she's got a bunch of wins since then. But I still go back to that. Every time I think of her, I just think, I liked Eddie as a coach. I thought he was really good and cared about his fighters, and I didn't care for her attitude in that scenario. So I don't know why, but that makes me dislike her. I don't know how you feel about that, man, but I had to share that.
Yeah, no, I actually do have an opinion on that. That was just a different time for Lauren Murphy. She had a losing record in the UFC. She had a really shitty attitude, and I also liked Eddie Alvarez on that show. But since that point, she's changed her attitude. Now she's got like a really positive attitude. You hear her talk. It's a completely different person. And as a result, look, she's on a win streak. She's ranked number 5 in the world. If you would have told me back in that time on The Ultimate Fighter that Lauren Murphy was going to be a top 5 fighter, I would have laughed in your face. So the fact that she changed her attitude, and look what happened. Now she's winning fights. Now she's top 5 in the world and fighting in a title eliminator with Joanne Calderwood. So it's a completely different person that we're dealing with. With Joanne Calderwood, she's hit or miss. She's hot and cold. Sometimes she looks like a world beater, and other times she has very head-scratching performances, like against Jennifer Maia, against Marina Moroz, like against Cynthia Calvillo in Scotland. So I don't know. I mean, if she shows up, she's got more volume than Lauren Murphy, and I think that she could win the fight anywhere it goes. But, if her and her boyfriend get into a fight the morning of the fight, then Lauren Murphy is very tough. She's coming at her best. She's going to be 100%. And that Lauren Murphy's gritty. She's tough. She's durable. So it really depends what version of JoJo shows up. But that makes me think that it should be, closer to a pick 'em, maybe a slight lean on JoJo. But that being said, current odds, I'll take Lauren Murphy here to squeak out a split decision.
There you go. I'm just, I like the volume of JoJo. I'm going to keep it real simple. Her strikes per minute numbers are so much better than Murphy's. It's not even close. She's landing almost 7 strikes per minute. Lauren only at 4 strikes per minute. I agree with you both that, when one is landing at that pace, the other one is forced to increase their pace to keep up a little bit. I don't think I think Murphy is more likely to be going for takedowns, as odd as that sounds, because I think JoJo will probably be landing more, and maybe Murphy will be looking for some way to get out of that. But I think most of this fight should take place on the feet, and I'm not going to count on this stuff with the boyfriend and the fighting. I remember that being an excuse used by JoJo years ago. That really went back quite a while.
You saw the Jennifer Maia fight, though?
She didn't look good, but did she make the boyfriend excuse for that one? No,
right? I'm just saying she's been finished in the first round 10 years ago and recently. So it's not like it's a once in a blue moon thing. Like, we saw it back in the day, and we saw it one fight ago. So
no,
it could happen anytime.
That was super disappointing. That specific fight makes you, that's why you're getting her at minus 130 or minus. That's why this is close, because I think if that hadn't happened, you'd probably be looking at like a minus 220 type situation here. She's just, the numbers favor JoJo quite a bit. So I'm going to go with Calderwood. I also like that she scores well when she wins. So, I'm less worried. One of my important I care what you score when you win. Listen, our ability, I don't feel that our ability to predict who's going to win fights is like so much massively better than the odds themselves predict. A little bit, you can get some edge. But in the end of the day, what I'm trying to figure out is, all right, what's going to happen if she wins? And if I wins, if JoJo wins, she scored well in her wins. I mean, she doesn't have a lot of wins where she didn't score well. 138, 139, 96, 89. These are really good numbers. 96. Every single win of hers has scored well on DraftKings. Now, that's surprising. If you don't look, you wouldn't know that. Like, if you didn't pay attention. But for whatever the reason is, she scores well when she wins. So I like that. And Marley always reminds me of that, because I'm always like, her again. And I'm like, oh, no, wait a minute. That's right. She scores well in her wins. Then I look. So I'll take some JoJo here as the better DraftKings play. All right. Up next, we've got Eric Anders, your boy, taking on Darren Stewart, the dentist. Darren Stewart is like JoJo, Dan. Like, sometimes he shows up and he looks amazing. Like, how is this guy? Does he have a girlfriend that gives him trouble? I don't know what the fuck is going on. He's just like that. Like, sometimes he looks great, and other times he looks like shit. I think it's the same thing. Minus 140 for Anders here, plus 130 for Darren Stewart, the dentist. Fight doesn't go to decision, plus 100. We got, a pretty neutral fight across the board. 50-50 goes to decision. So, Dan, what can we expect to see here, man? Is this Eric Anders from the last fight? Is that the new guy? Is he a little more active? Is he a little more exciting now? Do we like Eric Anders all of a sudden? Or is he that same boring guy we saw in the previous fights?
I mean, I've always liked Eric Anders. I think they just kind of rushed him a little too fast. He got a knockout in his debut, and a fight or two later, he's fighting Machida in the main event. So I think that they just kind of rushed him a little bit. He's a D1 athlete, but he's had some good wins, and I thought he looked great in that Darren Stewart fight. And also, he did this camp at Fight Ready, for the last Darren Stewart fights, and he did this one as well. So basically, Fight Ready, it's, man, whatever they're doing over there, they better keep doing it, because you look at a guy like Henry Cejudo, he was an Olympic athlete already. He goes to Fight Ready, he becomes a champ. You look at Patricio Pitbull, he was always a great fighter, goes to Fight Ready, becomes a champ. You look at Eric Anders, he's a D1 football player, D1 athlete, goes to Fight Ready, knocks out Darren Stewart in the first round. I don't give a shit what the official scoring says. Him and Darren Stewart got into a fight. Eric Anders knocked him out in the first round. Now they're fighting again, up a weight class at 205. I think that suits Eric better, and I also don't know about Darren Stewart's training situation. I guess someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe there might be some kind of lockdown in the UK. I'm not sure what their training situation is looking like, but we'll go with Eric Anders. Like, he didn't rest on his laurels of getting that first result or first performance. He went back to Fight Ready, and I think he's just going to build off his last performance. And the only thing is that every fight is different, right? So then it's not a guarantee he's just going to come out here and start Darren Stewart. And Darren Stewart's a dangerous guy, dangerous elbows, hits hard. So maybe a decision this time. I don't know, but regardless, winner Eric Anders.
Here we go. Marley, we got something to add here?
Well, yeah, I mean, he was definitely kicking Stewart's ass on his way to the win, but he was an idiot, and he did not get the win. So he can't do that same thing again. And that was 1 week after the biggest illegal knee of all time. I completely forgot about that fight. And when I was watching it, right as it was about to happen, it all came back to me, and I was so mad just watching the end of that fight. It had me pissed off for like 20 minutes. But he was on his way to completely breaking that slate. The guy had 50 points in a first round no contest. So that I definitely like. But going into that fight, I really didn't care for that fight because I thought it would be a slower paced striking match where the winner wouldn't score very heavily. So I'm stuck in between those. Do I want to go heavy on Anders, or do I want to go back to just kind of avoiding this fight? But at 205, I do think that's going to help Anders a lot. He looked like he was a lot bigger and stronger in that first matchup. And if he wasn't such an idiot, he was going to absolutely smash that slate as an underdog. So I can't be underweight to him this time because that was going to absolutely ruin me last time. So I'll probably be right around field weight on Anders just in case that same thing happens. But if this does go to a decision, I would not expect a 3-round brawl like we saw in that first round. I think these guys were both going to be slowing down if that fight kept going. And I don't think a decision is going to score well for either one of them. But it's definitely more so Anders or pass for me. Stewart had a couple big shots in that first fight. I mean, maybe at 205 he carries more power and can knock Anders out. But I think Anders is probably too tough for that to happen. And I don't see Stewart really scoring highly even as an underdog. So probably won't be targeting him with my hand builds, and I'll let the DS decide what to do with the 150 lineups, but Anders is the target for me.
I mean, we just saw this play out, so I faded Anders in that. He was 73. I had almost no exposure to him and got lucky on the illegal knee. I was like, oh, man, I'm dead. Throw away my money. I was ripping up my tickets, just throwing them. My DraftKings lineup tickets, throwing them. I'm done. Turning off the fucking TV. And then the illegal knee, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I'm still alive in this thing because I had full faded Anders. Not going to do it again. He destroyed this man. I don't see what's different. So I don't, that wasn't something normal. He was absolutely destroying Stewart. Anything can happen in a fist fight with two big dudes throwing hand, but I'm going with Anders this time, man. And I will play him for sure.
And why wasn't it a DQ? Was it because it was unintentional? They gave it a no contest?
Dan, do you know? Why wasn't that? I never understand how they make that decision. How do you know if it's intentional?
Well, firstly, Darren never said he couldn't continue. I think the doctor said he couldn't continue. So I guess they deemed it an unintentional, illegal shot. But man, I'm thinking to myself though, watching that, like, what does the guy have to do to get a stoppage?
Yeah, I mean, literally anything other than knee him in the head. Like that's all you have to do, and it was coming any second. So that's why I was so mad about it. Like literally, he could have smacked him in the face a couple more times, and it was going to be over. But he made the dumbest possible move when it was most talked about of all time because of Jan Aljo. So I'm still just talking about it makes me angry again. So I hope he definitely redeems himself this weekend.
Same.
Yeah. We'll see. You know what? You're in the heat of the battle, man. You see that head? It's really close to your knee. And you just, heat of the battle.
You think he's about to stand up, and yeah, it's unfortunate.
Yeah, it's just like, you're in the heat, man. It's animalistic tendencies going on at that point. Not everybody's thinking, and strategizing in the ring like that. All right.
I'll never be in that position myself, so I guess I wouldn't know.
I'll be in the heat of the battle, but there's no strategizing, and if the knee is there, I'm taking it. I don't care. Hopefully never be in that position. All right. Next up, we've got Drew Dober taking on Brad Riddell. Most famous for being Alex Volkanovski's training partner. Is that a thing?
Striking coach.
There we go. Brad Riddell taking on Drew Dober, striker. So I'll go to you, Bigmarley. Drew Dober has looked great in this sort of like I don't know if it's late career resurgence or mid-career sort of evolution or what, but he tends to look good against strikers and he tends to lose to grapplers. He's going up against a striker. What do you say?
I can't wait for this fight. I hope we get just full-on striking match. I would say it has fight of the night all over it, but I can't really say that after the last Figueiredo Moreno fight. I think that one's probably got it locked up if they want to be anywhere near the same. But I'm very excited for this one. If this was on the pay-per-view, it would be almost good enough for me to spend my money on it. But this is a free one, and I just think it's a super fun striking match. Both guys could get a knockout, but I do give the power and speed edge to Dober. I also think he's more likely to get takedowns. And that's the worst. I feel like he probably will go in there and look for some takedowns. It would be smart of him to do that, kind of take some energy away from Riddell, keep him guessing a little bit, because I do think Riddell is the better, more technical striker, and maybe he can pick his or point fight his way to a decision here. If he gets sucked into a brawl, though, I think that would help Dober, whether it be a knockout or just going for a takedown. So I do think Dober is the rightful favorite, but I'm a sucker for Riddell. I think it's pretty 50-50, and I'm hoping for a striking match. So I'm going to take Riddell to win a split decision. But I'm not super interested in him on DraftKings, because if he does get the decision, I don't know that he scores really highly. And I think Dober is the guy with the ceiling here, because he should be the one who lands a couple takedowns here and there or gets a big knockout, and he has the 100-plus point upside, where I'd be kind of surprised if Riddell knocked out or some sort of grappling decision over Dober here. So even though I'm picking Riddell, I think Dober's the better DraftKings play.
There we go. Dan, everybody who's fought Riddell has taken him down. Sometimes, like Magomed Mustafayev, I thought Magomed should have won that fight personally. 28 takedowns. I get that Riddell landed more strikes, but Dober's
and knocked him down.
Yeah, I mean, well, he got that knockdown. Maybe that was the difference maker in that fight. But 8 takedowns is a lot of freaking takedowns, and so now you've got Dober here. Dober is a striker. Like, this is a different fight for Riddell. Both of these guys Dober can hang in the striking department. I don't know who's better. I don't know how to know that until they fight each other. But does this one go just straight striking? Do we think that Dober is going to be in here kind of trying to go for takedowns and change up his game a little bit to sort of counter Riddell's game? And Riddell's winning these fights that he's been taken down a bunch, so maybe it doesn't matter.
Yeah, but it's against lesser competition. I mean, look, Riddell's really good. Don't get me wrong. But Dober's one of these guys that's truly paid his dues, and I think right now is his time, especially in a matchup like this where he doesn't have to worry about being wrestled. And, I don't even put any stock into that Islam Makhachev fight, because, I mean, you think Brad Riddell's going to come out here, land multiple takedowns, and submit Drew Dober? I don't. So it's really two guys that are going to stand and trade until one man falls. And Dober, man, he's had some performances where he snuck up on people. The Hack Paras fight, he was like a plus 300 dog. The Hernandez fight, Hernandez has had a lot of hype for whatever reason. Dober put a stop to that. And I think that right now is just simply his time. Even the fight he lost against Beneil, he was whooping on Beneil. Just got caught in an armbar against a serious black belt. Something that's not going to happen here. So I'm not sure if Dober mixes in takedowns or not, but I think that Riddell, I think he's kind of like stiffer on the feet. I think Dober might be a little faster, a little more fluid, but I could see that split decision Marley's talking about. Like, I could see it just being a really close fight. And if it is that fight, then it is a dogger pass situation. But I'll personally say that Dober makes it a little more clear and shows why he's the favorite here, shows off that UFC experience.
Yeah, I'm on your side here, Dan. I've, after seeing Dober really just absolutely dominate Dariush on the feet. Now, of course, eventually Benny did what Benny do. But Dober looked better on the feet against Dariush, and he's just looked great anytime he's been allowed to stand and strike. So I kind of said to myself after that, and more so, I would say even than the Hack Paras fight, where I was like, Dober has no shot. And of course, he slept him. So I'm going with Dober here in a striking battle, but really it's just going to come down to which of these two guys is a slightly better striker. They're two big dudes. They're going to be throwing fist. Dober, I have not seen him actually. I don't ever recall seeing him get rocked by a punch, but I'm trying to see if that's ever happened in his career. No. So I have not seen where Dober even got knocked down or looked like he was getting in trouble from striking from anybody. He's got that giant chin. So, striking battle, I think he can take what Riddell can dish out, and we'll see which one is the better striker here. But yeah, I'm going to go with Dober, a little more experienced guy and just very durable. I don't know that about Riddell, so we'll find out.
Well, we did see Malarkey floor him in that third round, but maybe he was tired. Who knows? But yeah, we have seen him get dropped before.
Dober, but
no,
Riddell
got dropped against Malarkey.
Yeah, Riddell. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I haven't seen that with Dober. I haven't seen anybody drop him.
I think OAM dropped him, right?
OAM took him down. Did he drop him with strikes?
Yeah, I think he dropped him with like a jab.
Well, then strike what I said.
But that was a different Dober though.
Yeah, that was a while ago, and that was the Dober who we all picked OAM in that fight. Let's be real. Like everybody had OAM winning that fight, so that was a different world. All right, let's move on to the next fight. One of your favorites, Dan. Jamal Hill, and coming.
Jamal.
Just Jamal. It's pronounced Jamal straight up.
Jamal. That's how you pronounce it.
Oh, Jamal. All right.
Not Jamahal.
No,
Jamal.
I know it's written Jamal, but Jamal. All right, Jamal Hill. Got to readjust the brain for that one. Taking on Paul Craig here. Heavy favorite for Jamal. Minus 290. Come back on Craig plus 245. Fight doesn't go to decision. A gigantic. Minus 2. This is what I like. Minus 285. We're going to get a finish here. And this is a pretty easy breakdown. I'm going to throw it to you, Dan. What do we expect to see in this one?
Expect to see dominance, man. Expect to see the best prospect in the light heavyweight division extend his win streak. Look, Paul Craig's made a lot of improvements. His entries to his takedowns are getting better. His striking is getting a little crisper. He's mixing in high kicks now. He's got a lot of experience. He's beat some good guys. He's tough. He's a dog. He'll hang in there. He'll get a good comeback. So Paul Craig definitely has my respect. He made it to the top 15, something I never thought I'd ever see. But Jamal Hill is the best prospect in the light heavyweight division. I mean, it's one thing to go on Contender Series and average like 7 or 8 significant strikes per minute, but then you come to the UFC and then reality sets in. That number goes down drastically. Like Jamal Hill's maintained that ridiculous number throughout his entire career, and he doesn't get hit much, and his get up game is absolutely insane. People talk about how he got taken down 6 times against Darko Stosic. Well, how many times did he get back up? He got back up 6 times. And how long did he get held down for? He didn't get held down for long at all. So I think that we're dealing with because I think people are under the impression that this is just another Rumble Johnson or another Melvin Gillard where on the feet they're dangerous, but you take him down one time, just put your arm around his neck and he's going to quick tap and that's going to be that. I don't think Jamal Hill's that guy at all, man. I think this is a very well-rounded and a guy that if he doesn't get a knockdown, there's a process behind his game. He can win decisions. He's got a very fundamentally sound game. I think he's good everywhere, and I think he's the dark horse in the light heavyweight division. So I think he knocks out Paul Craig Saturday night.
Here we go. I like the conviction of that one. Big Marley, what do you say?
It's going to be submission or bust for Craig. He doesn't have the wrestling or the top control game to win a decision here, so he's going to need to get a takedown or grab an ankle and have Hill tap. That's really his only way to win here. If he does, he's going to score high, and maybe he's in the $200,000 lineup. So I don't want to fade him, but Hill's my favorite play on the slate. He's just going to destroy Craig on the feet, and I don't think Craig can hang in there for 15 minutes. So give me Hill by knockout, and I'm guessing he'll be my highest owned fighter.
I mean, what more could I even add than that? This Hill probably going to knock this dude out, as you guys said. The only way Craig gets a win is he's done it before in his career, finds some miraculous way to wrap up a submission, maybe while getting his ass beat, maybe while sucking in Hill to jumping on top of him, trying to get a finish, and he throws up a triangle. It's certainly not within, there's a greater than 0% chance of that happening, but beyond that, Hill is going to smash here. Massive, massive inside the distance prop. The salary, $9,400. You are paying for a finish from Hill here, and you probably get one. It's that simple. All right. Let's move on. Next up, we've got Bilal Muhammad taking on Damian Maia. Muhammad's slight minus 225 favorite here. And the fight goes to decision is an above 50%, minus 150. A little surprising there. Fight goes to decision that high. But Big Marley, you know, Bilal, we know what Damian Maia is here to do. He's here to try to take you down and submit you. I haven't really seen Bilal Muhammad in a situation where somebody was trying to take him down. So I'm not sure kind of how he'll look defending takedowns. But, I mean, the pathway to beating Damian Maia is clear. Stuff the takedown, and, you know, you can outstrike him because he's an old man, you know, who doesn't have great striking.
Yeah, it sums it up. I think Bilal stuffs takedowns and wins the striking because Maia's an old man. But I'm not really interested in Bilal on DraftKings at 9,000. I mean, he's never really paid that off. In his last fight, that was like the highest output we've ever seen from Bilal. And he had a takedown, which I don't think he'll be going for those in this fight. And he still only had 93 points. I think he needs a knockout to end up on the optimal lineup. So I'm really not too interested in Bilal for DraftKings. I think just bet him would be the better way to go. And Maia would actually be the preferred DraftKings play if I had a roster to, because if Maia wins, I would say it's likely by submission, but he could win just a grappling contest as well. And if he gets it done, I think he's just scoring more than 72 points. That's why I would prefer him. But at the same time, I think he has a big enough name that'll make him more owned than any leverage that I want to get. So I'll still be low on Maia because I do think Bilal just stuffs takedowns and wins a striking-based fight. I just see him getting like 65 points or something like that in a decision, so it's not going to cut it on DraftKings.
I have something to add to that. I'm going to add to it before Dan goes. You know, he's 43 years old, man. You can never count on a 43-year-old fighter to not get knocked out. I totally agree. We used to have a thing where we talk about Bilal Muhammad always wins 88 fantasy points. Like, he was so consistent with his decisions and all of that. But this is one time. Again, you're going up against a guy this old. Bilal looked like a little bit, and I don't like Bilal Muhammad. Don't get me wrong. I am not a fan. But you're going up against a 43-year-old, right? He's coming off a fight where he landed a ton of strikes, like looked like a different striker than what we'd seen from Muhammad in the past. Like, something's changed about his fighting style. So I'm concerned. I don't think this is a fade him situation. I think, like, you probably want to get a little bit of exposure to Muhammad because he can knock this dude out. Again, he's old as fuck. He's slow now. And if he gets stuffed a couple times, like, I think it was the Tyron Woodley fight. Yeah, like, Tyron Woodley just stood there and didn't punish him. A lot of these guys didn't really punish him for just hanging out. But then Burns, he just knocked him the fuck out. So I'm worried that we see more of what happened with Burns, and, like, Bilal just knocks this guy, stuffs a few takedowns, knocks him the fuck out. I mean, it could happen. So I'm just saying, yeah, if this was 37-year-old Maia, I think he's durable. 43-year-old version, you know, maybe he's not. Maybe it doesn't take much to knock him out now because he's old. I don't know. What do you say, Dan?
I mean, I am a Bilal Muhammad fan, man. I mean, I love his style. He breaks guys and he cashes tickets. I'm undefeated betting on him. Now, on the flip side, I lose a lot of money fading Maia over the years, but I never lose on Bilal. And I got Bilal here, man. To put it simply, no 43-year-old is beating Bilal Muhammad in a fight. Period. I mean, basically, look, even if Bilal gets his back taken the first round, I think he's smart enough to survive. And then in rounds 2 and 3, Damian Maia is going to be completely gassed. He's going to be doing the walking mummy, and that's when Bilal's going to put it on him. So either a TKO or a lopsided decision.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I just my whole thing with that was just like, I get that Bilal is a decision fighter, but in this case against this guy, I think there's that possibility that he could knock him out early. I think Maia could be completely shot, you know, at his age. So I don't want to full fade it. I don't want to unfriend it. I want to have exposure to Muhammad on this card for sure. All right. We're getting to the fun fights, guys. Actually, that fight is a fun fight, but we're getting some more of these fun fights. Let's go first main event of the night. Leon Edwards taking on Nate Diaz here. Massive favorite, minus 600. I mean, Dan, I don't know. Do you give Nate a shot here?
Yeah, I mean, listen, if Leon Edwards starts fighting a little uncharacteristically, if he tries to brawl, or if he gets up to a big lead and starts to gas, then Nate's got a chance. I mean, Nate's proved a lot of people wrong a lot of times, whether it was the Cerrone fight back in, on the Overeem versus Brock card, whether it was the McGregor fight. There's been a lot of times when Nate's played spoiler. Anthony Pettis fight. So, but yeah, I mean, look, Leon's the favorite for a reason. And I think the reason they made this fight was because Leon's on this like 8 or 9 fight unbeaten streak, and he should get a title shot, but no one knows who he is. So, and everyone knows who Nate Diaz is, and he's got 5 million followers on Instagram. You beat Nate Diaz, all of a sudden people are going to know who you are, and then we can sell the title fight. So this is basically Leon's ticket to a title shot. So yeah, I think either a decision or a cut stoppage.
There we go. Marley, obviously Leon Edwards, a very heavy favorite. Does Nate have a shot, and does Leon score enough in this 5-round potential win that he pays off the salary we're going to have to pay for him?
Yeah, I would say for Nate to win, he would need to find a way just to outvolume Edwards for the striking, because I really don't see him knocking Edwards out, or to tap Edwards out. I think he would be the better grappler of the two. But Edwards is just the better striker. He's the better wrestler. He can dictate where this fight takes place. He's going to be landing the harder shots. I feel pretty good about Edwards getting the win here. I think he's the safest cash game play you could put in your lineup. I'm just worried about the ceiling, but I went in to this thinking it was a 3-round fight until the start of this podcast. So with 5 rounds, I mean, I like him a lot more than I would with 3. It's just $9,500 is a lot to pay. And maybe Nate Diaz's output, maybe he does try and outvolume Edwards, and that would only help out Edwards, in my opinion. And maybe he could even knock out Diaz or get that cut stoppage, like Dan said. Wouldn't shock me at all to see that. But if we get an Edwards decision like I'm expecting, I don't know that he gets 10x that $9,500 salary. So not a guy that I'm loving, but I'm loving him a lot more than I did, 2 hours ago when I thought this was a 3-round fight. Diaz, on the other hand, is probably going to be a fade for me. I mean, if he wins, he's going to pay off his salary. It's just he has too many fans for him to be so low on that there's going to be any edge for me rostering him. So I would rather just all his fans go ahead and grab him, get the ownership as high as you possibly can, and I'll fade him and get my leverage elsewhere. So it'll be Edwards or pass for me. Edwards probably would be a lock, I'm guessing, in the cash game lineup. I haven't built one yet, but I'll be throwing them into lineups because I think I won't have a problem affording them.
I mean, on a normal card, I might be interested in Nate as a cash game play, like a punt, as cheap as he is. 5-round fight, super durable guy, probably going to give you 5 rounds of scoring, even if he loses. But I don't know if that's even necessary on this card with some other underdogs that I probably like more, and I give a much better shot of sneaking in a win. So, for that reason, Nate really, for me, becomes only a GPP play, sort of a tournament, low probability. I don't think a lot of people expect him to win. Again, massive odds value on Leon Edwards compared to anybody else on the card. So, yeah, of course, Leon should win. I'm not sure he can do enough in this fight to put up a massive score, but maybe he can. It's tough to say. He's got the better wrestling, so he can use his grappling here a little bit, score some takedowns if he wants to. I don't love the volume out of Edwards overall, but 5 rounds makes up a little bit for that. So, yeah, I'm picking Edwards, of course, and I'm not 100% all in on this fight by any stretch is where I'm going with it. I don't think with 3 5-round fights that you must roster Edwards. I like him. I'll have some, but not loading up completely. All right, next up, we've got the rematch. Figueiredo, Moreno. A lot of great fights up at the top here. Figueiredo, minus 210. Come back on Moreno, plus 175. I'll start with you, Bigmarley, on this one. So, how do you see this main event going? The second main event.
I mean, I'm hoping it's similar to last time. That was it was a war, and the only reason Figueiredo lost was because he had a point taken from, I think it was an eye poke, and then he had a huge nut shot that they ended up taking the point on. Had he not had that point taken, he was going to win that round, and it would have been his win 3-2. So I don't know that a whole lot has changed here, but at the same time, I do expect Figueiredo to slow down as the fight goes along. He's definitely going to be more dangerous early. I don't see much changing in rounds 1 and 2. I think he will be the guy pushing forward, landing the harder shots. I wasn't expecting the volume that he was showing in that last fight. I feel like that's as high volume as he can get with his size and power if he's going for the early kill. So I wouldn't expect to get really any more than that. And he only scored 68 points in that draw. So I don't think Figueiredo's a lock at all for my lineups, even if I do think he gets the win. I'm more interested in the Moreno side. Moreno scored 80 points in a draw. I mean, even in a loss, that guy can get 10x here. And if he wins, he's just going to break the slate. Like, that's 110 points if he ends up getting his hand raised there at $7,100. No Moreno, no cash is how that's going to go down. So I want to be overweight on Moreno. I think he's just the younger guy who was going to have the better gas tank. Maybe he can mix in his takedowns a little bit more. And it's really just the line that's talking me into Moreno. Like, if there was no betting lines, I'm only looking at fighters. They're all priced the same. Then I would pick Figueiredo to get the win. But I just think that it's a little bit closer than the line indicates. So that made me go with Moreno in a split decision type of fight where it could go either way. I would just rather have the cheaper guy. And like I said, he doesn't even need to win to pay off his salary. I think the stack's definitely in play. The dub stack's definitely in play. But in my opinion, Moreno's going to be one of the best dogs on the card. Even though he might be like the highest or second most highest owned guy on the card, I still want to get a little bit of leverage there. And then Figueiredo, he can definitely get there with a knockout for sure. In any round, he could break the slate with a first round knockout if he wants to show that kind of volume that he was throwing in that first fight, and then have one of them drop Moreno. I mean, I thought he was going to go down a couple times in that first fight, so maybe he gets it done and just scores 120 points here. But I don't know that he's going to be locked for the optimal lineup if he wins a decision. If we just do that same fight from last time, you don't lose any points from grabbing the cage, so he still only would have scored 98 points if he won. That might not get it done. So I'll probably go underweight to Figueiredo, guessing that he's like 40% or higher. I'm cool with closer to like 20, 30% myself, and I'm going to be hoping that Moreno gets it done.
Dan, I think a lot of people are thinking that way. It was a close fight the last time. A lot of people kind of on the Moreno side of this. Well, where do you fall?
I mean, dude, I'm with Davison Figueiredo all day up until the time that he needs to move up to 35s. I think that's the only thing that's going to stop him at flyweight. I think that he's the best flyweight on planet Earth. His power is unmatched. The whole shit about his cardio. I mean, firstly, you got to use a lot of energy for that style. So is he going to take breaks at time? Yes, but the reality here is he fought Pantoja. It went all 3 rounds. All 3 judges scored at 30-27. He just fought Moreno, who was supposed to be this cardio machine, who won the 5th round. Davison won the 5th round. So he's a guy that can dig deep even if he's tired. But I think this time he's going to put Moreno away in the first round. And yeah, I mean, even with the point deduction, like, I still walked away from that fight thinking Davison's better than this guy. Like, I thought they got into a fight and Davison won the fight. So I think it'll be a little bit more definitive this time. I'm saying Davison via knockout.
There we go. Yeah, man. I think Davison's going to win here also, but you can't deny it was a close fight. The odds are close based on the salaries and the scoring and the things the way it went down last time. I have to have exposure to Moreno for that reason alone. It's just he showed that he can hang with this guy. He showed he can get takedowns. So I think he'll make it competitive. And, who knows what eye pokes or other shit are going to go down in nut shots or whatever. Weird things happen. But, yeah, I think overall, Davison really blew my mind when he beat Perez via guillotine. Like, where did that come from? Like, I don't know. This guy who had submissions in him also. So he's a well-rounded guy. And I think it's a super close fight. Moreno, definitely somebody I want a lot of exposure. I think he's going to be – Marley, I'm with you. I think he'll be the highest owned underdog.
I think he'll be the highest owned underdog. I'm guessing he's going to be second highest owned on the card behind Fola.
Man, Frivola, owning that much Frivola, I think is an opportunity to not do that, by the way. I'm telling you. I have a feeling it might be an opportunity. I'm going to have a lot of him too, but like, I don't know, because the other guy gets finished, but I just want to have some of his opponent. You got to have that opponent, McKinney.
Yeah, that's how I will get my hedge against my Frivola, but I want to be. I probably want 60+% Frivola.
Yeah, I hear that. We'll see where I go with it. But yeah, I want some of his opponents just in case. But yeah, I'm picking Figueiredo to win the fight. But Moreno's live. Like I'm gonna have a lot of exposure to him. It was a close fight the last time, and who knows what happens. But I'm picking Figs to win it. All right. Finally, the final main event: Adesanya versus Vettori, the rematch. Another rematch. Vettori's coming in as the plus 220 underdog with Adesanya as the minus 260 favorite. The fight goes to decision minus 130. Very close fight. These two fought before, Dan, and it was a split decision win for Adesanya from what I recall. Are we looking at something very similar here? Has anybody improved at all, or it's going to be the same fight?
They both improved a lot, man. I mean, that was like Izzy's second fight in the UFC. So the fact that they're fighting again for the title, and it happens to be in the exact same arena they fought in the first time. So yeah, they've both improved big time. So the way that people regard the Davison fight, where it's like, oh, I don't know, that's how I regard this fight. I don't fucking know. This is a close ass fight because on the feet you got to favor Izzy, but I mean, Marvin's got an iron jaw, man, and he can take a shot. He's got, for someone that's criticized for their cardio, kind of like Davison, like Marvin's out here winning the 5th round of fights. So I think he's got an underrated gas tank. And then on the mat, there's a misconception that Izzy has no ground game. If he truly had no ground game, Jan Blachowicz would have submitted him or ground and pounded him out. So Izzy does have a ground game. It's just, his get-up game isn't as good as other people in the division. Maybe his takedown defense could use a little work, but he definitely has a ground game. I'm just worried about, Marvin getting on top of him and kind of holding him down. That's definitely a concern of mine. I mean, Marvin's a very strong individual. And also, on a side note, I don't know how much y'all believe in like destiny and stuff like that, but sometimes these guys won't be denied like their night to win the belt. Like whether it's like Bisping against Rocco, like it could look like the biggest mismatch on paper, but when you put in that much work, like you're just not going to be denied your moment. Like Charles Oliveira the other week, or Jan Blachowicz, or Dustin Poirier against Max Holloway. So if this is truly Marvin Vettori's time, then I accept it, man. He's paid his dues, no doubt about it, and he's been in there with Israel for 15 minutes, so it's not like this is going to be some big shock. I do have to lean Izzy. I mean, he's the champ for a reason, but I think that this fight has the potential to go, to be like a split decision, kind of like people think the Davison fight's going to be.
There we go. How about you, Big Marl? How do you see this one going?
This one's similar to the Davison fight for me, whereas I'm definitely more interested in the underdog because if Vettori wins, he's going to be on the optimal lineup. Whereas with Izzy, it's even less so than Figueiredo because I think Izzy has to get the knockout to score well. I just don't see him having the output on the feet to get there in a decision. He only had 55 Draftkings points in their first matchup. Even if you add 2 more rounds to that, he's not going to pay off $9,300. So I think he needs to get the knockout to really be on that 200K lineup. And I do agree that he probably wins this fight more than he loses it. But in my opinion, he wins this fight closer to like 65% of the time. So, again, if we're just picking fighters, we're not looking at betting lines, they're all priced the same, I would be taking Adesanya here. And I've picked Adesanya every step of the way. I don't even know that he's improved a ton. I said he was that good back when they fought the first time. It's just everyone had to watch him beat better competition to, see it themselves. I think Vettori's the one who's improved a little bit more. I think he's on the better supplements as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and lean with Vettori to take 3 rounds, maybe 2 or 3 rounds. Maybe it's going to be like a split decision type thing. But I think he can wrestle enough to win 3 rounds in this fight. And I just think if that's what he does, he's going to probably be on that 200K lineup, whether it's from the top control time or those strikes on the ground. Maybe he's even chain wrestling, getting like 10 takedowns in this fight. something like that. I just think he has a much easier path to paying off his price tag than Adesanya does at $9,300. So not only do I think Vettori is live on the betting line, he's my much preferred DraftKings play as well. I'm going to be overweight to him, and I'm going to be underweight to Adesanya.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I just agree. Vettori is the better DraftKings play straight up. Like, he's the better fantasy play because Adesanya's hanging out in a range here with Jamal. I got to get that in my head. Jamal Hill. He's hanging out in a range with Bilal Muhammad. Got a chance for a finish. Leon. You know, a lot of fighters, Fola, of course. Anders, who already crushed. So there are a lot of favorites that we like that are very likely to score over 100 points if they win. Adesanya, the best thing he's got going for him, he's got 5 rounds to work with. But we've seen Adesanya. He's a counter striker. I mean, I've had a hard time actually reading how his fights are going to score because, you know, against Yoel Romero, against Anderson, he just stood there and just was comfortable not striking for very long periods of time, almost playing games in there, you know, striking games like, I'm going to counter you. There's a lot of technical stuff going on. That's probably great to analyze, but it's not super exciting to watch. So this fight happened already once, and he only landed 57 strikes over the course of 3 rounds. If we extend that out to 5 rounds, we're talking 70, 75 strikes. That's nowhere near enough scoring to make it worthwhile. So that alone is enough reason to say, you know what? With all of these other fighters that are interested, it took 4 knockdowns for him to score 117 against Gastelum over 5 rounds. So again, in a decision win, it's going to be really, really tough with Adesanya's style to get enough volume going to actually score well. So for me, Adesanya's borderline fadeable on fantasy, where Vettori is a very strong play. And if he wins, he's going to be in the nuts for sure. It's going to involve takedowns. So I'm going to pick Vettori as my better fantasy play. As far as who I really think is going to win, you know, I don't really know. So I'm going to go with Vettori across the board because I don't want Adesanya for the most part, no matter what happens. I don't think he's going to help me win tournaments. All right, guys, time for the kill shot, where we kind of go over our favorite sneaky underdog, low-owned play, edge play, whatever it is for the slate. I'll start with you, Bigmarley. What do you have for a kill shot on this one?
I'm going to go with Jake Collier. I'll be overweight to the overweight Jake Collier.
Oh boy, that's your kill shot.
I mean, really, it's Moreno and Vettori. Like, I'm gonna have Moreno or Vettori in probably most of my lineups. So I don't really know what I'm gonna do with these other underdogs because I'm gonna be able to afford whatever I want. So I don't even know that I will be overweight to Collier. But based on how I think you guys would be drafting Collier, I want to be way overweight to that.
There we go. All right, Dan, what about you?
Luigi Vendramini.
Love that one.
I think he's going to finish for Eziam.
That one's actually better than mine. I should have went with that.
Yeah, I love Luigi. Great choice there. I've got 2, but I want to give our boy Vince, Dan, you should know. Our boy Vince, also a big Half the Battle fan. He's something like, on kill shots, he's something like 16 out of 19 over the last year. His record is impeccable. And so we got to respect the Vince kill shot. He did send me in a kill shot. He loves Moreno as well, but said that's not a kill shot because he's going to be massively owned. So he's got Brad Riddell as his kill shot for this card. Really interesting. A little scary if you want to be excited about Dober here. He's got Riddell as his kill shot for whatever that's worth. So that's a good one. The 2 I'm looking at, and I will make a choice, but I like JoJo. I think she's going to be low owned and just scores a shit ton, and no one seems to remember that she does that. So I really like the JoJo play. The other one that I could consider here is Alexis Davis or my boy Terrence McKinney, but I'm going with JoJo. We'll say for kill shot, I think she'll outvolume Lauren Murphy and score well enough to be worth rostering. All right, guys, that's going to do it for the kill shot for UFC 263. Again, if you want our cheat sheets, the rest of our info, our breakdowns, our actual picks, our final picks, all of that, our fight ratings, notes, everything. Go to dfsarmy.com, sign up as a VIP. You can get all of that stuff there. And of course, access to the Domination Station Optimizer, ownership projections for the slate. Ownership projections are borderline more important than who you're picking to win. If you know who the field is on, you can try to win tournaments that way. And of course, we will be back next time for more UFC breakdowns for myself, for Dan, for Big Marley. We will see you guys next time. Good luck, everyone.